Cool. Thanks, Adam. Yeah, I know, man. I've been here just a few hours, and there have been a lot of social media questions already. As chair of JEA's Digital Media Committee, I get a lot of questions about this constantly. I think mostly because it's a thing that schools throughout the country are dealing with every day and not really sure what to do with it. I think the big thing I can say to start things off and get us going here today is whether you are on social media or not, and regardless of what you think about it, the conversation is going to be going on with or without you. And so if you are part of the conversation, and by you I mean you as a professional teacher, you as an individual, your staff, and your school, you can at least have control of that message a little bit more. I used to hum-ha around this, and I used to say, oh, you know, it's okay. You could, should get on Facebook, or your staff should get on Twitter. And I used to tell people, oh, it's fine if your staff's not there, your school's not there. But I don't think that anymore. I think schools need to be there. I think staffs need to be there. And I think we need to be there. And that's part of what I'm going to talk about for our time together this afternoon. So what I'm going to do, again, why we need to be there, why our staff should be there. We're going to do a little social networking 101 to talk about maybe what some of the different social mediums are that we maybe should invest our time in and how they work. We're all, if I were to sample you right now, I think we're all probably at different places. Some of us have been on there a long time. Some of us are not on there at all. Some of us have been on for 24 hours. Some of us have been on for 3 hours, okay? Some of us feel very comfortable with it. Others of us are really, really scared. And what I can tell you is while I've been like an early adopter with a lot of things as they go on, like I want things first. I'm the guy who waits in line for the iPhone. So, but with social media, I actually was not like, I'll tell you, I was not one of the first ones to jump into the realm. It was not something that I felt comfortable with at the time. It took me a long time to kind of wait around and get my feet wet and feel comfortable with it. And now I'm on there a lot. So it's not, again, this isn't just a guy who's always felt comfortable with it and was born with it. We talk about digital immigrants, and I'm definitely one of those. And then we'll talk a little bit at the end just about jumping right in, questions maybe that I'm not dealing with. What I've tried to do in here, because again, I've had a lot of these conversations with people, with large groups and individuals over the last few years, and so I've tried to hit on a lot of the same things that I get asked all the time, or the same but this, and this is why we can't do it. And so hopefully I hit a lot of those. Maybe I'll get some new ones today though, and I'll add that to my updated, refreshed version of this. The first one, okay. The first one, yeah, let's not get on there. It's the tool of the devil, and it's this terrible place, and only bad things go on there. And I think there's bad things that go on there, but there are bad things that go on everywhere. And it's like we were talking about in our last session a little bit. When we have 32 people in our classroom, you have one person not using it the right way. Should that have an effect on the other 31 in there? And I think a lot of times what we do is we take the one and assume everybody else is doing the same thing. So false. Social media is not the tool of the devil. So personally, why to be there? If we're talking media and journalism, which is what we're talking, and we're talking 2012, social media is an integral part of the 2012 landscape, okay? If we look at professional journalism, they are there. They are testing out social media. They are there in a million different places, trying out lots of different things, some things more successful than others, but it's where the professionals are. And if we are training our students, as we should be, for life beyond our classrooms and life when they go to college and be on social media, we want to put them, or at least I do, I want to put them in the best possible shape they can be in when they go there. And so I want to train them with some social. I think we also need to try it out because we need to make informed judgments on it. A lot of times, I think everybody has an opinion on social media, okay? Whether they've tried it or not, we all have. I know I did. I had very strong opinions on social media before I got onto Facebook, and I wasn't on Facebook for a long time, okay? Because I'd heard stories and I knew things. Okay? I didn't really know anything. I hadn't really been on there. I hadn't taken the time to learn it. I hadn't sat down with someone to have them show me what it was all about. I had just heard stories on the 5 o'clock news. Okay? And I didn't want to be a story on the 5 o'clock news. Okay? But what I realized was if I was going to make an informed decision on this thing, I probably needed to try them out. Okay? If I was going to make an informed decision on what I was going to tell my students about social media, I probably better try it out. Okay? It doesn't mean I need to go full deep in. It doesn't mean, and there are different ways and different levels to try things out. You do not need to jump on social media today and start blabbing out every detail of your life. You know, one of the things I'll talk about is early on when you get on social media, just listen. Listen and try to figure it out and just watch. Sit in the stands. Get there, but sit in the stands and watch what others are doing and try to learn a little bit about what's happening. This is the thing that's my biggest mission right now. I think we need to be there to serve as responsible individuals on social media to train our students. I think it's a shame what schools around this country are doing. They're doing what they do to a lot of great things, which is instead of training students how to use things properly or deal with things properly, they're just cutting them off. Okay? We did it when iPods came out. No, get away with all of them. Check them at the door. Throw them in the bin. You will never get them back. Okay? Maybe when you leave you can. Okay, and we're doing the same thing with social media now. It's the same thing that we were doing with iPods 4 or 5 years ago or whatever it was. We're doing the same thing with social media. We're closing it down. Why are we closing it down? We're closing it down because students don't know how to use it. Okay, so let's see. So we're not teaching them how to use it in schools because we're closing it down. Parents aren't teaching about it because a lot of them aren't there. And they're digital immigrants as well who didn't grow up with this stuff. They're probably not having the conversation about training. So who's training each other how to do social media? Them and their friends. And they're doing what they do via text. And we're doing what we're just used to doing on Facebook and things like that. And that's how some of them, not all of them. There are some students out there and high school students who are doing some great stuff on social media and who get it and who are doing it well. But for those that aren't, instead of doing what we're doing, which is cut them off, we need to be training them. Schools need to not be shutting stuff off. They need to be opening it up. Principals need to be online. Principals need to be on social media. And we need to be showing them how to do things the right way. Because this affects them in college. It can affect them in their jobs later on. And I think it's just our responsibility. We need to be on there to learn and stay current. I don't know. Maybe you don't. We all, as I'll talk about, there's no right way to use social media. Okay? Everybody can use it a little bit differently. What I like doing, and in this profession that we're in, teaching journalism, I mean, everything's changing daily. I have used Twitter for the last 3 or 4 years as my textbook. It's how I learn what's current out there. I go out and I follow things I'm interested in. I follow a lot of tech stuff. I follow a lot of high school journalism. I follow college journalism. I follow professional journalists. And I read what they're doing. I watch I don't read everything. Heavens, we can't read everything. Okay? But we can dip our toes in the water for a little bit and see what's going on and find out some things. And maybe we'll learn some new things that are going to help us much more than a textbook that was probably written a year ago. And then it took some time to get printed. And by the time it's out, 15 new social networks have popped up. And there's a new InDesign version that's, 3 versions down the road. And 3 papers have folded that are quoted in there. So, I think it's been a great way for me to keep up with things. And what social media does for me is it brings all these different sites and all these different tools to one place so I don't have to go out to 50 million different websites and try and find what I'm looking for. I follow them on Facebook. I follow them on Twitter. And they come to me, and then I click and I go back to them. Okay. And another thing that personally as journalism advisors, a reason I think social has been so good for me, is it's helped me stay in contact with other advisors throughout the country. I mean, we are, the vast majority of the time, these individuals in our buildings, and there are no others like us. Okay? A lot of times there's only one journalism advisor and we don't have anyone to commiserate with who understands what we're going through and who understands what we're trying to teach students and use the room as a learning process. And we need to know that other people are going through the same things out there. Yes, we can do it via email and we could write letters to one another and send them through things, the U.S. Postal Service, maybe you've heard of it. Okay, put a stamp on a letter and mail it out. Or we can connect and keep connected with them. I have a ton of friends, a lot of friends, and I call them friends in scholastic journalism, and we would all get together twice a year and be best friends in the world at the fall convention and the national spring convention, and we're great, and then we would have no contact with each other really for 6 months because we'd go off to our own little separate journalism labs in the basement of school buildings and do whatever it is we do, and then come together like we hadn't missed any time together. And what this allows us to do is connect with people who understand with what we're doing, who we can connect with to share what we're doing in the classroom, and really feel like we're not as isolated as we feel in our buildings sometimes. Now on social media, the tips I follow, I don't know, they're just tips. Here's 5, be nice. That's like a good rule for life, isn't it? Okay, for me, what I've decided for me is social media is just, it's a place where I want to go and I want to be happy. And so if you're ticking me off, I'm just going to unfollow you or I'm going to hide you because I don't want to go somewhere and make myself angry, okay? And likewise, I try to practice that same thing if I try not to be mean on social media, okay? I try to be nice, okay? And so I think, and that's like if we're talking to our students, or you're talking to anybody, I think, again, that's just a good rule. I think it encompasses a lot. I could go on what that definition means for 57 paragraphs, but I think we all get it. Be nice. 2 is listen. I think it's important on social media to listen about what other people are talking about and not just use it as a megaphone to blab about yourself the whole entire time and never listen to what anyone else is saying. Again, I think early on, if you're a little scared of it, it's good to just go in and listen and not say anything, okay? Because that might make you feel more comfortable. It might help you make an informed decision. But I think even when you start then to get social, which is what social media is about, I think it still is about listening to what other people are saying and getting in conversations with them. Being social, again, the talking, but I think this maybe more comes to when we're going to talk about our staffs online, and this is a decision you all are going to have to make on, is your staff and their presence online, are they going to be social, or are they just going to push links to the website? I don't know. Decisions you have to make. And have a voice. I think social media is great because it does help teach voice. Twitter's great because it teaches concise writing. 140 characters? I revise more on Twitter than I revise any paper I send off anywhere because I'm always trying to get the character count down or seeing what I say. I have so much more to say, but it's only 140 characters. I really probably only ever need 140 characters. Maybe I only needed to talk today for 140 characters, and you guys would have been much happier with that. But Adam has let me go longer than 140 characters, so I'm going to keep it in blab. Right, Adam? If I could stop you from going to 140 characters, I could stop myself. And I think the 5th is just think before you post. I was at a conference in Florida a few weeks ago, and at Sri on Twitter, he's at Columbia University. One of the things he said that people were like, a few of them gasped when he said it, but he said he spends 3 minutes composing each tweet. And that's because any tweet could get him fired, okay? And it's also a reflection of who he is, And so I think taking time for what we're doing and thinking before we post and looking over things is kind of a good rule, okay? Anyway, these are 5 things I follow, but having said all that, I don't know, we all use social media differently, and you maybe can come up with your own rules. Another thing I hear, students can't be trusted with this. Have you seen what adults are posting on Twitter and Facebook? Come on, I get into this. I get into this a lot of times when people talk to me about like my editors in my room running the ship and making decisions, and they're like, What do you mean you trust your editors to make decisions and run things and they have the final say? And what about them making good decisions? I'm like, I know so many adults who make so many worse decisions than students make. It goes back to that training thing. And so I do think you can trust students. I think they can be trusted more than a lot of adults. And again, there's always going to be the one. But anyway, why should our staffs be there? It allows us to meet our audience where they are. Okay, a lot of the reason we get onto social is because we build a website, our staffs build websites, and we want people to come to it. So how do we get them to come to it? Well, we need to go to them and remind them about it. People are online. If we want to find readership, if we want to find, they want to find people to view their photos, if they want to find people to watch their videos, they need to go out and seek them out. The alternative to social media is walking around town knocking on doors, okay? Or peeping in windows, and if somebody's online, then knocking on the window and telling them to go to your website, and that's creepy, okay? So, having a social presence allows us to control the conversation. Talked about this early. The conversation's going to be going on whether or not you are there. And if you're there, you have some control over it. You know, I think it's funny that people say, well, we can't have a social presence because the school said we can have no newspaper Facebook page. We can have no yearbook Facebook page. Well, what stops a senior, not on the yearbook staff, from going out and making a yearbook Facebook page, calling it the yearbook Facebook page, and posting a bunch of stuff about it? Nobody's ever going to find out whose account that is. Okay, oh, but it's the yearbook staff. No, it's actually not the yearbook staff. It's just a random student who created a page. Okay? And I think it's important for schools and staffs to develop that presence, to develop that account that is out there so people know this is the account, this is the trusted one, and it actually could help head off something that could end up being a problem. And attracting readers to its online content. Again, sending out, how do we get people there? If you post something to Twitter with a link, they say, that looks interesting, and click through and go to it very easily. So we want to attract them to be there. I think it's important, if you're going to be on social media and your staff's going to be there, that you do come up with policies and we do talk to them about engaging the audience. You know, I talked a minute ago that it's social. Social media is supposed to be social. It's not a one-way conversation. That's not even a conversation. That's a megaphone blaring things out and not listening to people. And I think if you have these social presences, that you should be getting into some sort of social conversation with your audience. It's a way to get story ideas. But what if they say something bad about us? Great. Find out what's wrong, okay? And listen to your audience. They're your audience. We should be listening to the good things, and we should be listening to the bad things, and then either trying to explain ourselves or try to fix what's wrong. A lot of times in our journalism rooms, we just sit there in those dark dungeons and we have all these, the students have all these ideas of what they're going to print and what they have out there, but they don't go out and actually listen or talk to students in the school to find out what they think about is being printed or what their favorite thing is. And this is another way, but they could bring a letter to the editor of the room. Okay. I know, we're all having our doors beaten down with letters to the editor in high schools all over the country. No, we're not, but this is a way for them to at least have a voice and get our attention and get that immediate feedback if you have somebody who's managing one of these. I think there are also ulterior motives to having a social presence for your staff, that when it comes time for recruitment and you have a bunch of people following the newspaper yearbook website account, and we get into different discussions here about what is it for. Is it just, how are you going to use this account and what is your voice? But giving them information that applications for next year are out. Giving them information through these social accounts that the yearbook price is going to go up. Giving them information that, it's the last day to get your senior photo or your senior yearbook ads submitted. It's great. And who's seeing these messages? It's not only the students who are seeing these things if you're on social, but parents could be seeing them as well. Okay? And helping you to promote and publicize your message a lot better. I think this is, and when we talk about teaching students about this, I think giving them an account and letting them run it. I mean, I'm a big proponent that if you're going to have a social media account for your staff, they need to be the ones that run it. My students have social accounts. They have a bunch of them. I don't even know the passwords to most any of them, okay? That goes back to trust, a lot of it. But it also goes back to my cohort in crime at my school, Beth Phillips, who I teach with. We do a lot to train the students on how to be responsible when it comes to social media. And this really is an active learning lab where we're not controlling them necessarily on their own personal accounts, but we can talk with them about how to do things the right way. And we have a tool and a vehicle in the room to be showing everybody else in the room and throughout the school really, okay, a way to do things and do it the right way. And why else be on social media? There's a lot of great ways to cover the stories. We talked about storytelling a little bit, but from live coverage, to using Storify or something like that, there are a lot of great ways we can incorporate social media coverage into our storytelling in 2012. If you have questions at any point along the way here, feel free to jump in, because otherwise I'll just keep talking. So, 5 tips for staff use. All right. Let students run the account. I said that. I think it's important that they run the account. I think it's important you give them training. And if it's me and there's, personally, if a student follows me on Twitter, my account's open, I follow them back. I let them all know that. I say, you follow me, I'll follow you back. I'm not going to go out and seek you and follow you, but if you follow me, I will say that it's all right to follow you back on there, and I'm okay with that. Facebook, I don't need to follow them on Facebook for many reasons. Facebook's a little bit different than Twitter, at least in my brain. So my philosophy there is if you graduate and you want to friend me on Facebook and see pictures of my 2 kids, that's fine. Okay, pictures of family on Facebook, that's as wild as it gets. But if you want to do that, then you initiate it, I'll follow you back, and that's what we do. Now, that's not right or wrong, whatever, but those are the guidelines I kind of follow when it comes to social. It depends on what your district's policy, and districts right now are all grappling with what do we do and what kind of policies do we put in place. And I think what this comes down to as well is educating districts on some of the benefits of social that's out there. I mean, really what Twitter is it's a micro blog. It's a blog. I mean, it's a blog of 140 characters. I mean, it's like it could be a website where you're blogging 140 characters at a time. And that's what it is. And if yours is open to the public, it's out there just like if you opened up a WordPress.com or you started a blog on Blogger. If that was open to the public, it's the same thing. It's just maybe 140 words at a time or 1,400 words at a time. But it's the same type of thing. So, I mean, yeah, districts all have some different policies on these things. And while you can't, I'm not going to tell you to go against what your district is saying, but I think that's where people need to talk to their districts and get in a conversation with them about things we could be doing to make this work.
Because I just opened up a Twitter account, and of course it's public.
Mm-hmm.
So if a student finds Ms. Fraser out there and they say something on
But if they say,
stop them from doing that. I mean, is there...
They're going to say things about you whether you're on there or not. So, right, we talked about that. That's the first thing. So how do you do it if they say something to you? I mean, like, if they say you can't friend them on there, I mean, I think what my role would be if that were the case and I had to follow that guideline, they could follow you, but you just wouldn't follow them back, which means you're not viewing their stream, but you could still type in their twitter.com and see what's going on. But there's open accounts on Twitter and locked accounts. And so the locked account would keep you behind a wall that only people you approve to see your stuff could see it. Okay?
Couldn't you just do that with just set yourself up with just a professional Twitter account, like for school, and not use a personal Twitter account?
Well, I mean, right, and I view mine as a personal professional. I mean, I do a lot of professional stuff on there, but I also want to be a human sometimes. So tomorrow, my family and I are going to Camp Jellystone in Eureka, and we're spending a few days. So I will probably tweet a picture of Yogi Bear or something like that if I get really crazy. So, but that's personal and it's professional, and I think it's important. I think it's important for me to be able to show that mix between personal and professional, and they can be married together. But you could have just a professional account, and that goes back to what's your voice going to be. Again, there's no right or wrong way to do this. When you dip into social, what is your purpose for being there, and who are you going to be? And when I get into some of the accounts later, I mean, I'm in a lot of different social spheres, but I have different reasons for why I'm in different ones. I don't use them all the same way. And I think that's figuring out, like, how do I want to use this social account and why do I want to do it? And that's something that we all have to figure out when we get in there. Yep.
Two things. One is there's no such thing as privacy with any social media anyway. I mean, we had a teacher get into a lot of trouble over something that, she criticized, not even by name, an administrator in a really fairly gentle way, only to people she knew in a private way on her Facebook, and somebody within the school screenshotted it and sent it to the principal. There's no privacy. So that's one thing. So don't think that, like, oh, if I just have people I know on my Facebook account or whatever, that somehow you're immune to anything going wrong. Even if it's, I mean, her criticism was fairly gentle and somewhat professional, and it still was a superintendent, union, the whole bit. The other thing is that districts are stupid a lot of times with social media because they didn't bother to look into anything, and there are things like Facebook groups that you can create that don't even entail you being friends with the students who are in the group. Right. And districts will say, oh, but you can't be see, I think you have to figure out what it is and then go explain to your district why they're being stupid so that they can then be, I don't know, educated.
That's not the lead I'd run in with. Bury that lead. Bury the lead. No, I think two good points there. And I think, we were talking about this at lunch a little bit, that whole idea of what you put on social media is not private. Well, it's the same with email. It's the same with text messages. It's the same with pen and paper. I mean, it's the same speaking, and that's why it's just a matter of thinking.
I'm sure that districts, too, are a little bit gun-shy. I mean, we have a very litigious society. I'm sure they're afraid of some parent somewhere suing the school because something was said or a student saw something. So I'm sure if they don't know what the social media is, how to use it, how it can be beneficial, I can see where they'd be a little gun-shy about using it because they don't know what kind of a can of worms they're opening up.
And after you guys work with social media for the next 2 weeks, you can go back and propose a couple-hour session with your principals and teach them about social media, which is what I'd recommend you all do. And again, educate them. They might not be receptive with it at the very beginning. Everything takes time to sink in a little bit, but somebody needs to start that conversation in your district because most nobody is. Have a social media policy. We'll talk about your editorial policies. I'm sure you guys are going to talk about that this week. And having an editorial policy, I think it's important to have some social media policies written as well, just as guidelines for students. I mean, you can find professional social media policies out there. There are high school ones as well. Yeah.
Where can I find data, evidence that I can walk into my principal's office and say, here's the evidence from both sides of this particular issue, because I can walk in there and say, this is really what's in our best interest, and I can show him everything that's right up here, but he wants hard evidence.
I mean, it depends on what kind of data you're looking for and what question he wants answered. I mean, we all want different questions answered, and so, I mean, I think you just go out and you search online to see what data's out there. You find people who know a lot about social media, and you ask them questions. I mean, it's when we want to know things and we don't know it, we seek out those people who seem to know more than us, and we ask them, and if they don't know, we ask them to ask somebody, and finally, you will find somebody who knows. But I think first you need to know what the question is that they want answered.
What I really am searching for is if I'm looking at the safety issue, because that value is that top one right there, is the safety of students and their families, privacy, safety, and those two go together. When we talk about social media, and it always comes down to that. It's not the boys as it is the safety of the kids.
But what's the safety? See, and I don't understand. I mean, okay, the safety of the kids, what I don't understand is they're on, well, right, but they're going to be doing that regardless of whether schools are on or not. I mean, they're doing it at schools on 3G while the school day is going on, even though schools have locked everything down. So whether, we can choose to ignore the problem that's going on, or we can try to do something about it, which is where the education comes in. And I think if we take that lead role as the math classes are probably not going to take the lead on social media in high schools. I love the math classes to death, but they're probably not the ones to step into the front line first and start on a social media push of the education and treating people, showing people how to do things the right way. And so, I mean, if you're worried about your staff bullying, then they probably shouldn't have access to the Twitter accounts. We find people...
Or, you know what, we're not going to hear, conversation is ended with this other person. But when you have a district or a school that is behind that allows, that's where the argument goes. We've had this conversation. That's why I'm looking at saying, so I guess I'm looking for a place where I can find statistics or data.
Well, I mean, and like I said, and we'll have to move on, because I mean, I'll be honest, I don't know the data, but I don't know what data you're looking for in terms of you want a percentage of what. I mean, I think what it boils down to here really more than data is it's looking for reasons that are beneficial for students, which I think is first and foremost. And then I think second of all, it's finding places where it works. I mean, there are schools that have open social media policies. There are schools where the principal has the most followers in the whole entire school and is letting people know what's going on. And I think it's talking to them about why it's open and what their experience is. The data, I mean, I don't know how you have a percentage or a number to quantify some of this stuff. I think what it is talking to people in an interview form and getting information from them about why they made the decision that they did and the fears that they had before they made those decisions. Did those fears come true or did they not? And I think that's about the best data you can get at this point. So, conduct social media training. I mean, and again, regardless of whether our schools are going to allow us to do this, if we're teaching media in 2012, we need to have a unit. I don't care if it's a one-day unit or a week-long unit, but we need to be teaching social media and how it applies to journalism in 2012, which we can easily then work in a social media training. And to cover ourselves if we want, to make sure we've covered you're teaching social media in class? Yes, and I had the school resource officer in to talk about bad things that could happen. And he came in and answered some questions for kids or told some scary stories and about bullying and what could happen. But then the rest of the time we talked about cool stuff that journalists are doing online and that the newspaper industry is doing to try to save itself. Okay?
So I'm just thinking of how, in my district, we have a big global competency initiative right now. So I agree with you that, yes, everyone's very aware of the negatives, but by showcasing the positives, look at examples of citizen journalism that have made wonderful positive changes in the world. It's like, that's what, and again, agreeing with you again, we need to be on those committees that are, because it's all new right now. We need to be sitting on those committees representing our point of view as these policies are being formulated, because they are
right. And not waiting until they've already been made. Right, being the one that starts the conversation in your district. That could give you a little clout. Another tip for staff, if they're going to be on social media, and I think this is good for us who have multiple social accounts as well. I have a JEA digital media account. I have my personal account. If you have an app with both of them there, sometimes you can post something to the wrong account. Like a picture of Yogi Bear to the JEA digital media account. I probably don't need to do that. So what I have separate apps on my phone for different accounts that I have so I don't accidentally tweet. Are accidents still going to happen? Yes, they do, okay? But what we try to do is we try to find ways to make accidents happen less frequently than they might, okay? And then I think the fifth tip is data. Data is important. Okay? We want to be on social media. It's going to make a big difference. Well, how do you know it's going to make a difference? And that's where you need to create a plan. Somebody wants to be on Facebook. Okay. So what are we going to track? Are we going to start to see, we're going to do it for 2 months, and we're going to see do visits to the website go up? Well, with something like Google Analytics, you could completely track that. You can use different URL shorteners that'll track every time somebody clicks on a link. So if they clicked on one of your Facebook links or clicked on a link from Twitter, you could know how many people actually do that each time. Okay? So having that data is important, and I think those are ones that you can quantify pretty easily. Okay, the big question that everybody's, we talk about all the time, and they say, well, they can't access it at school. Well, okay. So school is not really this 8 to 3 thing, okay? We have this thing called homework. And I started talking 4 years ago, or 5 or something like that with my students about, I wanted to have a social media editor in the room. And I thought that'd be really cool. Nobody took me up on it for like 2 years. I don't know. I guess they saw it as homework. They were all there. They were doing many things, but once they saw it as homework, they didn't want to. Finally, they did. But we see this as, okay, so we try to figure out when is our target audience online. And yes, they're online during school, even though we have jammed their signals. Okay? They find a way around it. They always do. Okay? It gives them something to do during the day. Okay? And so while they're there, they might be on during the day, but when are they online heaviest? Probably checking things when they get up or when they're on their way to school, or they're on late at night. So when should we be pushing stuff out on social media? When they're actually on the computer, not at noon, when they're at lunch eating food and stuffing their faces. And so if we have this social presence, we need to have that social presence outside of the school day anyway. Okay? And there are tools that actually can help you make this very easy, and we'll talk about some of those as we get going here. Lots of different accounts. Do you have to be, have a social, if you decide, okay, I'll try this social media thing out, do you have to be like all 57 places? And I put MySpace on here. I don't know. I made it really small, though. It used to be bigger, but I still did leave it on there. But no, you don't have to be everywhere. I think you could try a couple out and you get the main idea. Try one out, you probably get the main idea. But they're all a little different, and they all can have different purposes. Now, personal profile pages, this is what you would create on Facebook if you were going to make your own page. I think what some staffs and schools have gotten into is when they want to create a staff account, instead of creating a page, they create a profile. That's bad. Okay? If you read the terms of service that you agree to when you create a face account, it says you must be an actual person. Okay? And what some people do is their first name is North and their last name is Star. It's the name of their newspaper. And so they created it. And why would they want to create a profile rather than a page? Because what? Because you can go friend people. You can go get people and grab them and say, come here. Come here, we're friends now. And you can go out and build up your follower base very quickly. Whereas if you're a page, they have to come to you and they have to like you. Okay? Facebook has actually created a tool now where if you were a big cheaterhead and did not follow their terms of service, you can actually create your profile and turn it into a page. And I think you actually can keep the followers that you built up as well. But a personal profile is not what you would want as your staff. I always find it weird when some business in town tries to friend me. That's strange, okay? The page is what you want, though. The page is what the staff would want. And again, what this is, when we are creating pages, and we'll talk about these things a little bit, but a page, you're sending information out. It's a tool to disseminate information. It's a tool just like your yearbook. It's a tool just like your newspaper. Your students are deciding what goes on here. You're going to choose to allow people to comment. You can turn off comments. Kind of defeats the social purpose. But you can, if you have comments turned on, go in and delete them if there is something that's not there. But if we have a Facebook page and somebody puts something bad on it, we're in trouble. No, they put the bad thing on there. You didn't put the bad thing on. They would have put the bad thing on there whether you were there or not. You were just a space that they actually put something on there right away. They should still be the ones that get in trouble, okay? Your staff who just posted a link to a story is not the one that's going to get in trouble. If that were the case, professional newspapers, all of them, would have lost their websites. Have you ever read the comments on newspaper stories? I stopped that years ago because it just made me angry. I don't like getting angry, so I stopped reading them because they did. So it's the same thing here. You're not the one that said it. It was somebody else. Okay? But this is an easy way for us to put photos up, for our staffs to put video up, send links to our story, create a poll, ask for story ideas. You can create at events. They have this woobox. I found this the other day. There's this place where you can actually sign up and then you can add some things on to your Facebook page, like if your staff has a Pinterest account. Why would we have a Pinterest account? I have no idea. There are reasons journalism papers do. There are lots of reasons why you could. But you could then easily embed all your Pinterest stuff on your Facebook pages and have it be like a microsite, really, with a lot of different things on it. But there are a lot of tools. Well, what kind of events would we create? Well, what about creating an event like yearbook sale prices going up? Well, that's just information. That's okay. Or what about a big homecoming game and asking people if they're going? Well, it's kind of weird, but still, you're letting information out there. People can engage and say, yes, I'm attending. Letting them know when paper day is. You know, paper day should be like a holiday at your school. It should be a big deal. You should let people know when it's going to be happening and ask them if they're attending school that day. Okay? Even if people don't reply in droves, it's publicity for your program that, yeah, the paper is coming up. Cool, and they have something to look forward to. And the school thinks it's a big deal. Vanity URL again, and this is just a little tidbit thing. If you want to, normally Facebook, when you create a page or a profile, this is what your thing looks like. If you want to tell me, hey, check us out on Facebook. Facebook.com/profile.php. Question mark, ID equals, you can find us there. And all that stuff, no, it's ridiculous. So if you just go to facebook.com username, then you can like actually print in house ads in your newspaper or on flyers or in an email link or something like that. Whatever it is that your page is, and send people directly there. Makes you look like you know what you're doing a little bit more. All right, benefits to your publication. You can find readers. You know, we can gain readerships for online publications, maybe find leads for sources, find stories. Did anybody do anything cool this summer? We have a spread for the yearbook. We know nothing. Oh, there's a lot of stuff that happened, okay? Go out and you can find people that way instead of standing on top of a lunchroom table and asking. But that might find you some stuff too. You know, you can take your message to the audience, again, rather than having them come to you, linking your content out. My staffs have gone through different phases with social media where they've done a really good job of linking stuff out, and then other times they just thought they were linking too much, so they just started having conversations, and then they'd go for like 4 months at a time without linking something back to the website. Well, you need to have links to click on for people as well. Build relationships with your audience and promote the program. I thought this was cool. This was back at that conference I was at a few weeks ago in Florida, and it does kind of, to me at least anyway, this rang true to me that Facebook is for your heart and Twitter is for your head, and I think that's kind of how I use the two as well. I don't really look to Facebook a lot for news. That's what my Twitter's for. I don't really look to Facebook to learn a bunch of stuff. I keep up with people on Facebook. But hey, is that right? No. You can do whatever you want. Another question I get, why waste our time with Twitter when the vast majority of students don't use it? Because I'm moving into Twitter here. Okay, well, they don't use email either, so should we ignore that too? Actually, email, I force, like the first week of class, I force all my students to get a Gmail or some email. If they want to fight me and they don't want to use Gmail, okay, but they need some sort of communication tool because that's how the staff communicates with one another. They use Google Docs for all their writing and everything like that, so everybody's got to get email. A lot of students are not used to email. They're still not used to checking email daily and getting on things. They're writing things without punctuations and no capitalized letters. All good teaching tool things that we can use to help them have a little better voice where we say, send me this back if it is not capitalized and you have no punctuation. But anyway, on Twitter, I think there is some good there, and especially for those who are on there. Twitter essentials. All right, if you don't know much about Twitter, let's just run through a few things quickly. Tweets are confined to 140 characters. You can have a closed account, which, yes, as anything that's out there, it's not really closed, but it's more closed than some things. Or you can have a completely open account where anybody can see what you're posting. As with Facebook, people use it a lot of different ways. Personally, it's how I keep up with news and how I learn things. You can tweet via your cell phone. It can even be a non-smartphone, okay? There are still those out there. Maybe you have one. And you can just send a text message and it'll go to your Twitter account and it'll post there. You can post from a smartphone. There are a million apps for those, and the computer as well, so you can send messages out if you want to. Why might that be important? Well, if you're live tweeting a ball game and you have a student who really wants to do that, they want to get into sports, they want to do live coverage of something, they're into Twitter, they could use just their simple phone that they have, even if it's not a smartphone, and tweet score updates from the game. And you can follow from a computer or via text. And you don't even have to have a Twitter account to follow Twitter accounts. I'll talk about that a little bit too. I don't know what averages are. I don't even know. I just made that number up. So the average is 4 tweets a day. I don't know. I put that on there a year ago or something like that. I don't know. Maybe that was right at one time. That had to be right if I put it down. I don't know what it is now. But yeah, you can include links, have a conversation. Terminology, here's maybe what we need to know. The @ symbol just goes before someone's name. So anytime you see an @ before someone's name, like I am @Manful, this just means, hey, this person's on Twitter. It basically replaces twitter.com/. It's not a backslash, it's a slash. But twitter.com/Manful. So that just lets me know, hey, we're there. RT means a retweet. So if you are on Twitter and you see an RT, and I gave you all a packet with a couple of the slides I have coming up that shows a few things that I've given you some screenshots of and annotated them. But the retweet is basically you're just quoting someone. Maybe you're just passing along what they said, but instead of stealing what they said and saying, I said this, which is always funny when you tweet something and then like an hour later somebody else has the exact same thing, but hey, wait a minute, I said that, and you took it. But anyway, it's nice. Be nice. So if somebody says something that's cool or they pass along a cool link that you liked, give them attribution that they did it. So there's a little button that says retweet, so you can retweet it. And the RT just basically means, here's what somebody else said. Hashtag is basically, again, just a way of classifying things. We talked about that a little bit earlier, but the hashtag is important. MT, you'll see that some, not a lot, but it just means modified tweet. We only have 140 characters. If you hit retweet and their message is too long, sometimes we need to shorten it down. Okay, so an MT means this is the gist of what they said. Okay, I cut something out. If you want to find out what they really said, go check out their account. And if you want to send a direct message, you just send a tweet with a D in front of it. A direct message is like a private message to someone. Yes, it's not really private, as we've talked about. It's more like but it's not going to show up on your Twitter account. It's more like an email or a text message to someone, but you can use Twitter to send messages back and forth that are not going to appear on your feed for the masses. And I could get into this in a little bit. Sometimes you're going to see this little period at the beginning of an @ reply. This is as complicated as I'm going to get for the rest of the time, and then I will move on to easier stuff, I promise, okay? When you reply to somebody on Twitter, if a tweet starts with this @ symbol, okay, the only people that are going to see that message are people who follow both people. So if Adam sends a tweet out, and I reply back to him, and Sue follows both of us, okay, everybody's going to see that tweet in this circle, okay? But Arnie, who was in here earlier, does not follow Sue, so he's not going to have to mess with that. Twitter's basically saying, if you guys all follow each other, you probably want to see this message that is going back and forth between the two people. Sometimes people put a plus here because they want to start off with an @Maxel and they want everybody to see it. So how do we cheat? We stick something in front of the @ symbol, like a period, and then everybody can see it in the world. So anyway, terminology. You have some of this stuff. It just basically breaks down what Twitter is and how to use it. I'm not sure in our time today we can get into a lot of this stuff, but the breakdown is you can post tweets up here. It suggests some people to follow. This is kind of cool, what's trending. So if you want to find out what's happening now, what are people talking about, some of it's really cool news stuff. Others is just viral, weird hashtags that are out there Like, I don't know what it was yesterday, but they were renaming Finding Nemo movies for something. I don't even know what it was. It was very strange. Anyway, your settings are controlled up here. There's an example of a retweet. And anyway, the @ symbols are what people are known by on Twitter. Your profile. If you go to somebody's profile, and you can check these things out, but again, you put your picture in there. It starts off with an egg. When you get a Twitter account, try to put a picture in there. Even if it's a picture of a coffee mug or something, just get the egg out of there. That should be one of the first things you do. And put something in there so people know who you are if you don't want your face. But you could do that. You can create lists. Like, for instance, I don't use Twitter to follow what's going on. So I follow a bunch of people. And so what I do is I've taken people and I classify them into lists. And Twitter allows you to do that. So I have a list for Iowa Hawkeye stuff that I want to follow. I'm on Twitter. I want to do things that I want, so I follow a lot of Hawkeye stuff. J teachers, journalism teachers. I have a journalism teacher list of journalism teachers that I follow on there. And I'll tell you why this is all important in a minute. I have a news list. I have a tech list of things that I want. So it's basically a way to label who you're following, and the lists are important because you can use them in a lot of ways. If you're new to Twitter and you want to be like, well, I don't know even where to go to follow people, the first thing I did when I was on Twitter, I tried to find an organization that was on Twitter. NSPA was, the National Scholastic Press Association. I went there and I looked for who is following NSPA. I figured, well, if you're a journalism teacher, you probably want to follow this high school journalism organization. So I looked at the followers here and I went through and I just started following people I knew, or I started following people that were high school journalism teachers or something like that. I mean, if you go anything out there and you want to find out like best technology Twitter accounts, you can type that into Google and a million different lists are going to go up and you can go peg things off that way, or talk to people who are on Twitter, find out some of the people that they follow, and you can just start talking to them then and find out who are good people.
On Twitter, if you have the pound symbol and the alphabets NF before the symbol and your name, what's that mean?
Where's that? The MF?
Not MF.
I know.
Coming from us. Oh, well, that's not it. Okay, let me find it.
Okay, find that, and I'll be glad to answer that for you, or at least try to. And here, what I use, one of the sheets I think I gave you guys was this Hootsuite. I use Hootsuite, which is another app.
This is me, and this is what
I have no idea. I would type # NF into Google, and then I'd see what came up. I have no idea what that is. Yep. Okay, so Hootsuite, what this allows me to do is all those lists I created in Twitter, I can put them all into columns and I can follow things in. It separates out the people I follow so I can track them a lot better than the big news feed of death on twitter.com. It allows me to search through things a lot easier. So there are a lot of TweetDeck is another one a lot of people use. There are some others as well. But these are things you could use to help manage some of your accounts a little bit. What this also does, Hootsuite, it allows me, if I wanted to post to Twitter or to Facebook or to both. So if your staff has an account like this, they could post a message to Facebook from one place and Twitter from one place. They could send the same thing to both. I'd be careful sending it to both because people on Facebook really don't like when you include # signs and @ symbols and things like that. So I used to do that. I got away from it. But yep.
It means new follower.
New follower. Very good. Okay, good. Well, that's a nice one then, right? Good. New follower.
And now follow. Okay.
Now follow. Cool. All right, so your voice, pick a good name. If you're on Twitter and you want to pick a good name, pick something that's short. You only have 140 characters. If people are going to retweet you or they want to include you, you don't want something that's like 1,000,000 miles long. My JEA Digital Media one is way too long. I don't know how to cut it down where it makes any more sense. It's 87 characters long or whatever. Anyway, it is what it is, but you want to try to come up with short. So if your staff is creating a Twitter account, having something like Washingtonian newspaper, that's way too long. Okay, so you want to come up with something that's a little shorter for the presence. Have a pick with little detail, meaning, thumbnail photos and things like that. You don't want a big overall group shot. People aren't going to be able to tell what it is. So have little detail in it. Get a background on your Twitter account. You can set a background. There are like places out there you can just search Twitter backgrounds and download free ones, and then your Twitter page can look cool if somebody visits it. And then decide who you're going to be. I mean, this is really what it is for all different social platforms. Like, who am I going to be on these different social accounts? And when and what is my voice going to be? And you can be different people on different social mediums. Okay? Like multiple personality type things. Okay? I work to have a distinct voice on my Twitter account. It's a little different than my Facebook account. Not that it's a lot different, but my Facebook account, again, like I said earlier, has a lot more family stuff where I don't post really pictures of my kids on Twitter. Just personal. Anyway, so decide who you're going to be. And I think that's important for your staffs on who are your staffs going to be. And then following people accordingly. I mean, there are all these things like, do you follow people back or not? And if your newspaper staff, should you follow them back? I'm a firm believer if your high school staff is on Twitter and people start following them, tell your students to follow them back. Okay? Because if you're on Twitter, it's nice to get a new follower. It's nice to get that little alert. And so students in high school, if they follow your staff's account, just follow people back. It doesn't mean you're going to read their stuff. It doesn't mean you're going through the feed and paying attention to a lot of it. It just means you follow them back and it's nice and polite. Everybody has different philosophies on followers. That's one of mine. A couple different ones to check out. And the Weatherbirds actually changed a little bit in the past few months. So its account's a little different. But I think these are a couple different examples of professional newspapers and their Twitter accounts trying to add a little personality and flair to what's going on. The Weatherbird, the former Weatherbird, I talked to her at one time and I said, you're creating this and you have this voice and you're talking to people in St. Louis. And so there was this Weatherbird account for the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, and they had their regular Twitter account at STL Today, and the at STL Today account was just links, headlines, links, headline, links, no conversation. And I was like, let's go to the website if I want to see something. But what the Weatherbird does was they'd talk to people in town. It was kind of cool. Sometimes they'd send out a link to a story, but a lot of times it was talking to people who were out there. And it's a position that's actually with the Post-Dispatch. And I think the percentage at one time was 60% of the time the Weatherbird was engaging in conversation, and 40% of the time the Weatherbird was sending links to try to get people to come to the site. I loved following, and I still do, like following the Weatherbird and seeing what's going on in St. Louis because it's much more conversational, and I feel like the Weatherbird's listening rather than just megaphoning. The Colonel Tribune is a little snarkier version of the Weatherbird, but it's from the Chicago Tribune. I think last I heard there's a team of 5 running the thing, but and again, it's this idea of putting a mascot kind of with the staff and turning it more social. I mean, we could have an hour-long discussion about, is that right in journalism or not? And that's not today. It's just me showing you some stuff. Anyway, a couple to follow, though, just at least to look at voice and maybe give your staffs a couple things to do if they're creating this faceless account on how to maybe make it personal. There's some high schools out there. If you go to jeadigitalmedia.org, I think in the right-hand side column, there's a list, or just type into the search box on there, high school staffs on Twitter, and there's a big list that comes up. You can add your own name to the list, but Highlight News is there. My students, one of their accounts is at FHN Today. A yearbook account at Details Yearbook. Whitney Details from California, they're out there. Again, slide will be available online for you all. My staffs actually have 3 accounts. Okay? And when you were there, why would we do things? Well, they started with one, which was FHN Today. They wanted to get into live coverage of ball games. Some students wanted to do that. Okay. Well, they started doing it on this account, and people felt like they were getting spammed all of a sudden. So they said, okay, we're going to make this at FHN Today live. So when there is a live event coming on, they let their followers know here, hey, come on over here if you want to know what's going on at the baseball game, or you want to follow tonight's football game, or if you want to follow the band competition this weekend. We'll be live tweeting it here. And then this last one actually was, I talked a little bit about people don't have to have a Twitter account to sign up for it. And so my school did away with announcements this year. They just got rid of them completely. So they were brainstorming ideas, well, how are students going to get announcements? So the newspaper staff said, hey, we'll create this FHN Today news account, and we will promote it to tell people that if you want to get announcements sent to your phone each day, they will take 3 or 4 select announcements sent via text, and all you have to do is text to 40404, follow FHN Today News. Okay? And what that does is it sends the 3 or 4 messages a day to these people. They can stop it at any time. The newspaper staff took that on and runs that account. People can follow on Twitter if they want, but the majority of users and parents have just signed up for text messages going home about what's going on at school. It's much more of a school account than anything, but the staff uses it too when they need to let people know about yearbook sales or something like that. It's another tool to get the message out. They sign up themselves. They just text to 40, and there's information out there on that. I think I have it on the digital media site too. If I don't, send me an email and I'll get you the information and I'll get it posted on there for others too.
When they text their number to that particular thing, an actual human has to then like input that? Or? So
yeah, each day I had a student who just set in, each day they picked out 3 announcements and then they scheduled them to go out at different times during the day. Hootsuite allows you, and other programs allow you to schedule your tweets. So you could send a message out at 9 in the morning, at 3 in the morning, and 7.
When the phone numbers come in,
nobody sees that.
Nobody needs to worry about that.
Oh no, nobody sees those numbers. That's just Twitter knows about that, but that's not the staff doesn't know anything. It's a Twitter thing. Right. Nope. And they can stop it at any time. Twitter tools, just a couple to check out if you're looking at it. Social Loop to schedule things. URL shorteners, you have those big long URLs. How do we shorten them down for 140 characters? Bitly and Google has one. There are a lot of others out there. You can, on your website, put a little widget to show your feed. I think there's one on the ASNE. Is there one on the, did you put one on there this year? Yeah. On the ASNE site, there's a Twitter widget that's on there. So Adam can talk to you all about that. And Hootsuite and TweetDeck are a couple apps, a couple of the main apps that people use to kind of send things out to those accounts. There's also Buffer app, which is another one out there that will help you schedule things. Guidelines, are you going to converse with people or not? I mean, my thought on this is that social media is you need to find a way to train your people who are running these social accounts to talk. And again, if the philosophy is be nice, I think that encompasses a lot of stuff, and I think people actually know what be nice is. So, my rules are pretty simple. Be good to others and be nice. And I think that I could list a million rules, but that kind of takes care of a lot. It's like with anything. If you don't have time, don't go down the path. You guys are, again, like we said, learning a billion things here. You need to figure out what you have time for, but you also need to figure out if you have students who want to do this. If you don't have students who want to go to the social route, if you don't have students who don't want to get into video, it's going to be an uphill battle the entire year, and this is not something that should create work for you. It should create work for the student publications. So if the students are excited about it, let them run with it, with whatever it is. I think it's our job to throw them out ideas, and lots of ideas, and hope something sticks. And something definitely will, but it might not be the thing that we want. There are a lot of things each year that I want. I rarely get what I want in my class. It just happens, okay? Yeah?
Do your students use Instagram?
They do, but more personal, more than, I don't think we have a staff account. I don't think so.
I just wanted to mention about the text updates. If you are worried about your kids posting on Twitter, being in charge of the account, you yourself can subscribe to those text updates.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of annoying, but that way if they do post something that you don't want them to post, you see it automatically. And so it's not, because otherwise I find myself if I don't do stuff like that, I forget to check it.
Right, and that's great. So if there is something that goes out, you subscribing to those, and you in Twitter, you can just go into any account and just say, send updates to my phone, and it'll do it that way as well. Again, and Adam can help you with this week. And I'm sure you can help each other how to do that. But I have all of the stuff that my students sent to my phone, so if there is a problem, I can talk to somebody quickly about it. And then if a principal or somebody has a question about things, I can get back to them right away, and say that, it was dealt with, here's how it was dealt with. As soon as I saw something, this is how it was handled. And so that helps.
You
You can delete it, but I mean, it's like you say something stupid coming out of your mouth, you can't really take that back either. You know, you can do everything you can to mitigate the damage and do things like that. And if there are plans in place, and again, that's why if you have a social media policy and you have training at the front end, you say, we did all these things, accident happened, here's how we fixed it easily. I think that goes a long way to show that you had a plan in place, and it's not like the Keystone Cops running around and you don't know what to do. That, you know, we did all this stuff. And how to use it as a reporting tool and work it into the editorial policy. Okay, Twitter and Facebook, the two I spend the most time on. I think Facebook is where you're going to get the biggest bang for your buck. Twitter may be second biggest. And then there are some other things out there. I don't know if I put 4 in here real quickly just to go through to talk about. Foursquare is a location check-in service. You can become mayor of places. Somebody is mayor of Adler building, or Adler, that's in Iowa. Somebody is, you know, the journalism building here. Somebody is mayor. Somebody is mayor of Shakespeare's Pizza where I had lunch. It's not me on either of those things. But anyway, people go, they can check in, they can get coupons for shopping different places. But why might your staff want to use Foursquare if you got a kid who's really excited about Foursquare? Because they could make an organization page and leave tips different places for things, which basically you go to check in a place, there's maybe a tip there like, hey, we reviewed this restaurant on our website, come check out our review or something like that. Or you can make Foursquare lists to let people know of restaurants to go to in town, like a to-do list. They can subscribe to those lists. And again, it's just another way to connect with your audience. Again, these are things that if you have a student that is interested in these things, let them run with it. You know, maybe they are only interested in Google Plus and nothing else. Well, let them run with it, okay? Tumblr, a lot of students on Tumblr and doing things. The LA Times has a really good Tumblr account that's out there. A lot of papers do. Again, you can search professional newspapers on Tumblr and find a bunch. Whitney High School, again, we go back to Details Yearbook. How they used their Tumblr was what they did is they used Tumblr to chronicle the evolution of the book throughout the year. And so they posted at different times how the book was coming along, what was happening. And again, trying to make, which yearbooks need to do a better job of, which is engaging their audience throughout the year rather than just a couple different times. They need to do something to keep that incitement going throughout the year. Another Tumblr from the Foothill Dragons Press, they just posted some articles, links to things, reviews on movies, things to do over the summer. They used it a little bit differently. Again, no right or wrong ways. Maybe use Tumblr as just a photo of the day. Okay? Let's just put a photo of the day up, and we're going to do a photo of the day from school. Somebody's going to be in charge of it, and all they have to do is put up one photo a day of something happening at school. That'd be easy. Wouldn't take a lot of time, and it could be counted as a job. Google Plus, you know, Google's social network that, I don't know, you have to take kind of seriously. I had no interest in this. I had 2 students last semester who wanted to do it. They posted photos and videos to Google Plus throughout the semester because that's what they wanted to do. That was great. It probably got us a little traffic. It got some kids who wanted some experience with that, a chance to use that tool. It's like, well, if they want to learn photography, then they get a camera. And these wanted to work with Google+. I think the other social networks were all full. You know, Facebook, there's only a couple people. Twitter, only a couple people. So they said, all right, we'll do Google+. And there was at least another presence that was out there. And maybe, I don't know what the rate was of people coming to it, but at least it gave them some experience of responsibly posting to a social platform. Pinterest, some stabs out there have Pinterest pages now. Pinterest is big. I don't know. I use Pinterest. I think I have one board that I've created. Anytime I see the number 26 on something, I take a picture of it and I post it. That's all I do. I don't know. I'm not really heavy into Pinterest. Okay, I don't even know. I'm like dipping my big toe into Pinterest, whereas I'm like swimming in Twitter. So I use different social media platforms. I need to know a little bit about it. I need to be there. I need to have an idea about it, but I don't need to go swimming everywhere. So anyway, but there are the highlight newspapers there. Nile West, FHN Today is there, and
There's a band camp, that's the woman.
it is. So. Anyway, kind of social 101, it's kind of a lot of stuff. Again, I think you know, our time here is actually exhausted itself. But what I wanted to do at least was give you an overview so you all could work together, because I think this is what it is. It's good to work with each other on your experiences that you've had. I think it's important to be open to new things. I've taught a lot of summer journalism workshops for high schoolers and adults for a long time, 16 years or something like that. And I always find it strange when people sign up to go to workshops and summer camps, and they're like, well, I'm here, but I'm not changing how we do the yearbook because this is how we've always done it. You know, well, why did you come to camp? You know, I don't get it. And I think that, you know, you all have a chance here these next 2 weeks to try some things out. While things are going to be weird and you're not going to like a lot of stuff at first, it's about having an open mind, and it's trying some things out so we can at least make educated, informed decisions on what we're going to be doing in the end. And again, knowing that you don't have to do all this stuff. You need to learn a little bit about it so you know it, so that you can point your students in the right directions when they have questions. So I don't know if we have time for questions or where we're at, or a couple questions left, or... Cuts into mealtime if we have extra questions right now. I understand that, so.
I just have a quick question.
Yeah.
I'm curious to know how much time you spend managing your Twitter account, because to me it just seems overwhelming. I know you seem very organized in terms of how you manage your list, but it also seems a little bit narcissistic to feel that you have to communicate or you have to respond to all these multiple conversations. You said that you use Twitter to get news, but I don't necessarily see it yet as news. It still seems like opinions, or I'm not quite sure.
I follow a lot of news accounts like Breaking News.
Okay.
And they, like, if something's happening around the world, they're usually, not always, the first one to like let it know, but I follow like a lot of news stuff there. A lot of it is opinion stuff though. I mean, like, one of the things that I had just decided to do professionally was, and it was partly with the next26.com and other things, is I just decided I was going to make it my mission to help other journalism advisors or teachers that need to be. And so what I do is I use Twitter as one of those means, and a main one of my means, to help connect with advisors, offer resources, connect other advisors together, share what I have, but also learn stuff from them as well in the process. So I do it as professional development and as a helpful tool and things like that. I use it a little bit in the morning, maybe for an hour as I'm reading through things and some things like that. Each morning, like I'd read the newspaper. I use my account then, and then I'll check into it sometimes throughout the day, but it's not all the time. I don't know, I mean, but again, I'm not on Pinterest much at all. And my Tumblr probably hasn't been updated in 4 months. I mean, it's where we decide we want to spend some time and what we want to do. And again, I'm not here to preach that everybody needs to be on there every day for 1 billion hours. I think we just need to educate ourselves so we can work with our students to educate them. And that's one of the big things. Yeah.
Somewhere I had gotten the idea, it must have been a couple years ago, when Twitter first came out, I don't know how old it is exactly, that the Library of Congress was going to archive all tweets.
They do.
Can you validate that?
They do.
They do.
Mm-hmm.
Does that have any influence on why you've chosen that particular search?
Nope. Now, to me, I like short and concise, and it's easy to plow through a bunch of what's going on Twitter rather than Facebook.
So Library of Congress is
Yeah.
archive.
Library of Congress archives tweets. Mm-hmm.
And Twitter is a PM device, like an English chat happens every week, and a social studies chat, and they archive those tweets. It's not through Library of Congress, but then if you participate and something interesting happens, you could access that archive later on. So it's really helpful.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Aaron.
Yep.
I think he's going to stick around for comments. We are going to break for dinner now.